Lockdown, and you're right about Boris Johnson in a very moving way, James, because you have a very, very sad personal story in regard to what happened to you in lockdown. And the headline to this article is "We cannot forgive Boris Johnson this time." Of course, everybody's talking about Partygate, everybody has an opinion on it. What is your opinion, and why do you feel what you feel? Obviously, look, you're someone who worked for the Labour Party, you're probably not going to like Boris Johnson anyway, but there's more to it, isn't there? Tell us about what you went through in lockdown.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those weird things because I, like you say, and as you point out, have campaigned against Boris Johnson being Prime Minister for some time. I worked for the chair of the Labour Party, making sure that Boris Johnson wouldn't become Prime Minister, which wasn't very successful, I must say, as he is now Prime Minister. However, we've been pointing out Boris Johnson's character flaws for many years. However, in lockdown, in the first lockdown, as it now transpires, round about the time this initial garden party invite went out to over 100 members of staff. I was grieving the loss of my mother, who died very suddenly. She died, as many people did. I mean, people seem to forget that people continued to die of other causes other than COVID during the first lockdown.
So your mother didn't have COVID?
All the lockdowns. No, she didn't have COVID. She died of an undiagnosed blood clot. It's a bit of a sore point still because she went to the doctors, our local doctors, to get her leg looked at, which had swollen up. And when they looked at it, there was no doctor available due to COVID kind of becoming a pandemic at the time. So she saw a district nurse who took a look and thought, oh, it's just a mild infection. Here's some antibiotics, and about 48 hours later, she was dead. So it is an extreme case of misdiagnosis. It's not something I would ever blame at the door of overworked NHS staff. This is what happens when people are pushed to the limit and they have to make decisions in very extreme.
A lot of people would say that's a very generous interpretation,
yeah,
James, on that you're really, your mother died because of misdiagnosis. Yeah. My goodness.
It's taken some time to get to that place, Peter. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of anger, and you feel a lot of anger in the grieving process anyway. Towards what could you have done, what could have been done differently, and when it was misdiagnosis, it's going to be incredibly frustrating. However, understanding the circumstances at the time, a global pandemic, the likes of which people have never seen in their lifetime, it's hugely challenging for NHS staff. But when she passed away, we faced probably the biggest challenges from there on in during that lockdown period, because we had coroners who had literally no fridge space in the morgue because bodies were piling up, as the Prime Minister's referenced before. We had, crematoriums who were unable to perform cremations because they were so backlogged. So we had to send my mum away 80 miles away from home to the nearest crematorium that was available, which was a heartbreaking thing to do. And of course, we couldn't travel that far in lockdown. We couldn't get down there just to see it and to take, to have two people attend the cremation and the service. So we just had to walk on the beach locally, which was part of our mandatory, our mandated government daily exercise at the time. So, it was a very sore point at the time. And we thought, what we're doing is for the greater good. We're making this sacrifice, as many, many thousands of people were doing at the time, making sacrifices with not just grief and death, but with, their own lives, things like their mental health, that people were making huge sacrifices at the time. And to find out now, even though I've known for many years what Boris Johnson's character's like, and, many other people have, to see this really thrown in the face of people who've gone through adversity and really struggled during lockdown.
I want to get into that in just a second, James, but first of all, there was one detail in your article. Just tell us the conclusion, because obviously your mother was cremated without you being there, you being there to say goodbye, and her ashes delivered to you. Tell us about
that. Yeah, I laugh about it now because I think there is a lot of humor in.
If you didn't laugh, you'd cry.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think there is a lot of humor in grief.